She's Katy Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. Now, here's Katy and Justin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wrong Way Forward. This is the podcast where we roast bad advice, and then we try to give you some type of solution or some type of good advice so you move forward. Today, we are so very excited. We have a wonderful guest, Tony Smith, and today we're going to be talking about matchmaking, finding that significant other. So I'll pass it on to my best friend and co-host, Justin Joseph.
Hi, everybody. Tony and I have been friends for many years. In fact, I think when I first came out back in, I always call it the 80s, but it was the early 2000s, because I knew no one. I joined a volleyball league, and Tony was one of the first people I met. He met his husband shortly after, so I think you kind of disappeared or I kind of disappeared. But anyway, we frequently see each other out and about, and Tony has a wonderful business where he does matchmaking for the LGBTQ community. But we thought that skill set certainly transfers, and so we thought Katy, I mean, how many times have we done these podcasts where we're talking about people who are trying to find the love of their life?
Well, I think it's that, but it's like everything's relationship based, right? I mean, it's all about the relationships in your life, period. I mean, that's what brings true happiness. So yeah. I am sure that Tony is not just going to talk about the love of your life, but how to build good relationships.
So with that, Tony, tell us a little about yourself, your background, and what brought you into Denver's Cupid, which is the matchmaking service that you started.
Thank you so much, Justin and Katy. And yes, indeed, you and I met in the early 2000s. I met my husband playing volleyball 2002 at Cheeseman Park. But hi, everyone. I'm Tony Smith, founder and owner of Denver's Cupid. And for 25 years, I've been building community right here in Denver. And if there's one thing I know, it's that some people are taking the wrong way forward when it comes to love. People are treating their hearts like a digital slot machine, and I'm here to help you get off the bench and into the game. And at Denver's Cupid, we offer 100% private, personal, boutique matchmaking for our LGBTQ plus community.
And Tony, am I right that skill set, I mean, matchmaking is, you can find matchmakers in any sort of community, whatever your sort of love life looks like, but the skill set is the same. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I would say so. The wrong way forward is trusting uncertified, unregulated ghost type operators who hide behind anonymous websites, algorithms, or fake promises. But I will say that, like so many things in life, people say that they feel like they were destined to do that. I was raised in a Filipino household. Filipino mother, American dad. My mom was throwing Filipino disco parties my whole life, and it was all about connection. And my mom always remembered who needed what. And I took that and I went into event production, and I've been connecting people my entire life. So when people ask me, how long have you been in matchmaking? I said, well, pretty much my whole life. But I started Denver's Cupid actually in 2020 during COVID, when we really needed connection.
And so tell me, because looking at your Instagram profile, I mean, you are out and about in the community constantly at events. Are you meeting prospects? And I don't mean clients, I mean prospects for your clients at all these events. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I would say that's also is a good sign of a matchmaker, is being completely transparent in all social media. And so that's why I'm hyper public. You can look at me and my personal handle and my Denver's Cupid handle, and you'll see that I'm constantly posting that I'm all over the place. But to answer your question, it is both at all times. It's both a curse and a blessing for matchmakers. I'm constantly thinking, oh my God, yes, you'd be a great client, or how can I help you? But it's also all the networking, 18 years, as you might recall, Justin, at the Cherry Creek Arts Festival. 350,000 people every single year. But along with all that networking, I was essentially the talking head in media. So I became a known person that way, and then also serving boards and commissions. So I like to tell people, it is my job to know everybody, and that's a matchmaker's job. So you really want to find someone that is hyper connected. And I also tell people, I have everything to lose by not being a person of my word. And that's proof in the pudding with my social media. And what I also go on to say is I ran for Denver City Council. And if you ever run for office, people will say, if you got any skeletons in the closet, they're going to come out. So I'm very proud of my reputation. And that's the other thing people can do is just Google them. Look at the reviews and just see if there's any Better Business Bureau complaints on them or anything like that. And I'm just really proud that It's a very hard job, as anyone knows that's public, including you all. Whenever you're public, you're under a lot more scrutiny. So definitely look those things up.
So take us to the beginning. If someone's interested, I'm assuming people who find you have probably tried the various dating sites. They've probably been to the bars. They're probably fed up with the whole thing. And so they think this may be a last resort. I'm guessing you would argue it should be a first resort. But if it's a last resort, how do people start, and what should they, who's your ideal client?
I would say, the wrong way forward is jumping into a search just because you are, like you said, lonely, bored, or expecting a matchmaker to wave their magic wand and just fix your single status. And so it's really about people who have done the work. You know your worth, you're already content with your life, but you're just looking for someone to multiply your magic rather than complete you. And also it's about, you're ready when you're ready to trade that addictive, low effort slot machine of swiping left and right, and, start working on a more of a values-based strategy. So it does start with who you are first. And some people think that it's not for them because they think it's a last resort or something like that. And it's really the executive that knows the value of time. It is not matchmaking isn't a depreciating asset like a kitchen remodel. Also, executives, professionals, or people who just know what they want, know that you hire a specialist in what you're looking for. I am not going to tailor my own clothes. I am going to hire someone that knows what they're doing, and just like, I don't know anything about podcasting. So I would reach out to you all to say, what are the best, what's the best way to go about this? So it's about hiring a professional.
Yeah. So Tony, I'm just dying to know because, in addition to kind of being a matchmaker, I'm assuming kind of after a date, you do get feedback. And so what are you seeing are the wrong way forward, the biggest mistakes people are making in those first encounters when they have those first dates?
Well, I would say, and in my world, called dating 101, but perhaps everyone should be reminded of this, perhaps, is when you meet someone for the first time, you want to dive right into your what you could connect on. And so one of the things that my company does is also speed dating events. And I always tell people the very first thing you say is, of course, you introduce your name. And it's about, actually before the date, I tell people to walk around the block and know you deserve that amazing date. The universe is yours to take. So it starts with you. Mm-hmm. And then that energy is the very first thing that person feels and sees. It's whatever you're projecting will come through. And then it's about starting out with of course, the lighter things you're into, like, oh my goodness, I was just on this amazing trip in Spain. Are you into travel? When I'm matchmaking, I do all that work beforehand, and I even have the icebreaker question ready to go based on something that they have in common. But start out with the smaller things, and that dating 101 that I was referring to isn't like, I just got out of a 5-year divorce.
Right.
Or I've got this ailment. It's about keeping it light and finding connection.
So, not to dumb it down, but my only exposure to matchmaking is, I'm sure that you hear this all the time, is the Millionaire Matchmaker, which I watched a lot of back in the day when it was on. And she always would, firstly, is that real life? I mean, obviously she deals with wealthy individuals. I'm sure you do too. But is that a good representation of what matchmaking looks like?
I would say anything we see in reality TV is magnified, right? Even any social media is magnified. And so I think it's up to each of us to get the entertainment value out of it. And then without question, the reason why they're also popular is there's a lot of reality to what they're going through. So when I'm working with clients, I become my client's headhunter. What are you looking for? And this is how it works. And people wonder, what's the magic of matchmaking? It's, yes, check boxes, this age, this ethnicity, that ethnicity, these set of values. And you can imagine people list their deal breakers. And there's number one deal breaker out there right now, and I won't bring up any particular colors, but it is, there
We
are
don't
all kinds
discuss
of
colors on our podcast.
Yes, and is this melon?
Even though that does look a little MAGA red.
But I think that with the Millionaire Matchmaker, and she's a very well-known person in our industry, and she's great.
Big personality.
It's when I'm talking to potential new clients, I say, okay, you're looking for 35 to 55 and all these characteristics. It gets different when you're like, I need for them to be, I'm 99 years old. I want a 21-year-old that drives an orange Pinto that's within my block. Okay, that is a different kind of match. And that's when I also say, it's another thing to look for in a matchmaker is you want to find someone that's going to put the same amount of work into every match, no matter what your income level is. The difference in the matchmaking packages, that's something that I highly encourage people to look into when they're shopping for a matchmaker, is how do they work, their reputation, like I said, but then the service levels. So sometimes it is like, oh, you know what you're doing. I can put you on dates like this. So you're going to be low touch point. But then back to your point about Millionaire Matchmaker, you become their personal concierge. I will answer the phone every single time you call. You'll get me at specific times of the day that no one else has access to.
Right. They may be in the bathroom on a date calling you saying, this happened. What do I do?
Right. So it's just like I'm flying to Paris tomorrow. I mean, through London to get to Spain. And there's many ways of getting there. Yes, I love my Clear. Yes, I love my Amex Lounge. But then all of us know I don't got that private jet. I just said I don't got it. Anyways, so there's just
Tony, we're going to pick this up on the other side. Tell people where they can find you if they are interested in your services. We'll talk more on the other side, of course, but let's at least get that on the air right now. Sure.
denverscupid.com.
Okay. So we're talking today to R. Tony Smith, who is the owner and founder of denverscupid.com. We're getting his best dating advice. We're talking about if you are in the market for another person or to make connection, this is the route to go. And we'll talk to Tony about his best tips right on the other side. We'll be back with Wrong Way Forward.
You've been listening to Wrong Way Forward, where bad advice goes to die and then gets resurrected just so we can roast it again.
If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like and subscribe and come back every Thursday for new episodes.
Have a new topic or some disastrously bad advice you want to dissect? Email wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Include your contact info.
Now back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin podcast.
Hi, everyone, and we're back, and we are so excited to be here with R. Tony Smith of Denver's Cupid, and he's talking to us about the wrong way forward when kind of looking for love. And what I found so interesting that you were talking about, because I've done a lot of executive coaching and kind of career coaching throughout my career. And a lot of times we get to that values-based, right? Like, how do you connect to have the impact? And I'm wondering, how do you get people, or people coming to you values-based, or you having to lead them along the way? And how do we get people who are thinking about love to get past those kind of maybe superficial things? 6 foot tall, this particular age, this particular build? Or is that not your job? Your job is to really help them find what makes them happiest.
Yeah, I'd say it's a blend of all of the above. Number one, I've been with my husband for very proudly 24 years. And what I didn't realize was, number one, I did all kinds of work on 3 very challenging relationships first. So you have to do the work first.
What do you mean by that, Tony? Tell us what you mean by that.
Doing the work?
Well, that and the fact that you did the work on 3 prior relationships. What does that mean?
So I feel like the universe is going to deal you the same cards until you learn the lesson. And that's kind of like something that maybe our parents told us.
Great
but
advice.
Also, I had lived in a pretty Pollyanna-ish growing up, where not a lot of challenges and not a lot of great loving experiences other than my parents. But that's also where we get our initial programming for how we deal with love, friendships, belonging, and all those kinds of things. So it's those kinds of things that build up to when you start wondering, what did I do wrong, or what did my parents do wrong? And that's where doing the work comes into play, about taking your inventory. And that is finding out why you tick and why you respond in certain ways. And there's so many tests out there, your love languages and those kinds of things. But when I was mentioning meeting my husband, I had done the work on 3 relationships that dealt me very, very hard knocks, things
Mm-hmm.
that I had never had to deal with before. And things, my bottom line for those 3, and this is my ultimate lesson in life, is self-care. And I love it when RuPaul says it. She says, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anybody else?
So
She says it in
true.
a different way, but it starts with loving yourself. And that is one of those key values, is where you come from and what is important to you. And then other learned things along the way that I found that I have in common with my husband is justice. When we see injustice on the TV screen, it's one of those things that ties us together. But there's so many other values in line. It's religion. Like, I had one client that was Jewish and said, I only want a big Jewish family because for centuries, that's what my family's done. Got it. And you name it, it's their money and children or not, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
also, Katie, to answer your question, as part of the onboarding process, and I also encourage people to always create a free, private, personal profile on Denver's Cupid. I believe everyone deserves love, so it's free. And you get into the database and into the system, off the bench, into the game. But it's,
And you get in free in that sense, right? I mean, if someone picks you, you don't have to pay for it.
Well, matchmaking is an investment, but everyone in my database, everyone I've ever known, plus all the matchmakers I work with, instantly expand your database. But just by going into the database, you're eligible for a date with one of my clients.
Okay.
But on the onboarding process is a long list of values.
Got it. Let's talk about some misconceptions. Firstly, what do you do when someone's like, I want someone hot? Like, that's their, that's what, yes. I'm sure this happens all the time.
Well, I always have to start with, there is something to be said about someone being interested in a type. So my mom, 4'11", dad, 5'11", Filipina, white guy. My brother and I both like tall blondes. My brother likes women, I like men, and my husband is a foot taller than me. So I've always just liked tall white guys. Okay. I'm not going to because of my own personal experience, and I think that's where we all need to start. I also let people know that is sometimes you have a thing. And also, I will say about age.
Oh, yeah.
We spent a lot of time in Palm Springs, and there are so many very huge age gaps in relationships. Just like people like their particular types, age is another characteristic that people like. It's not a mommy daddy thing. I think it is 2 people are at the same emotional level, just different outwardly ages. So I think that is just another one of those things that are out there. So, but what I also say is it evolves over time. Some people will be like, I love everybody. You're the perfect matchmaking person, because we can then explore, and I can be your coach about did that person make you feel seen when you guys were on the date? And did you feel pretty or handsome with that person? But also I tell people, this is another big giant myth, is the spark on the first date. Okay. It's like, ooh, I didn't feel it. I think what I always tell people and this was in the last segment, was finding the connection first. When you're meeting a friend, a new business person, or as my father would always say, he never met a stranger, talk to the person at the grocery store, the clerk, make a connection. And then when you're on that date and you just keep finding more connections, you might not have a spark, but you might be interested to go on another date with them. And then also, people many times in the matchmaking industry and the world at large, they don't fall in love overnight. And this is what I said about my husband. I don't know why. I just kept wanting to be around him.
And I think that's a great lesson. Yeah. We're talking to Tony Smith with denverscupid.com. Talk to us about the investment. Do we say numbers, or is it each case specific? How does all that work?
Yeah, I would say that it is definitely like any kind of investment in your life. And this is about an investment that's going to last decades, and to not treat it like you're buying a kitchen remodel or something like that. it's definitely a more substantial investment. So whenever you're dealing with something bespoke, it's definitely going to be more of an investment. I will also say it depends on um, different parts of the country are different. And then also, just like all businesses have niches, like I love your niche of going through life more aware. So everything has a niche. My niche is definitely LGBTQ. There are matchmakers that focus on Asian, Jewish,
Okay.
African American, you name it, every single segment of the population is represented, just like we have representatives in government for every single one of us. So
And
I
on that
think
note,
it's
if we have people listening that are not part of the LGBTQ community, can they reach out to you and say, I'm a single white female, and who would you recommend? I mean, will you make connections to other matchmakers?
absolutely, matchmakers can make connections to other matchmakers, and I'd be happy to do that.
Katy, what other misconceptions are out there? Katy, would you use one? Let's start there.
Well, I mean, there has always been a comment about this. And I have a friend who actually used a matchmaker. And I don't know if you remember, but when we used to take the airplanes, it would be like, let's just do lunch. I think there was something called that. And it was, advertised in every, airplane magazine. I don't know. It seems like a really big investment. And it's almost, I think it's a great idea. I think Tony is really inspiring in the fact that he's so good at what he does and is such a connector. But it's almost like I would want to like flip through the book first and then see, okay. And again, I try to find myself to be a values-based person, but I know that there would be some other sticking points. So I think he made a really good point of people are specializing in kind of different things, right? And so I think it's looking for the right personality, but then also what's the right kind of niche and community that person is working in. But I can tell you, it's turning now. Tony is starting to change my mind on matchmaking.
And
Definitely.
Tony, let me ask you that. Do you find that there is not a stigma? I don't think that's the right word, but I guess early on in internet dating, there was sort of people didn't tell, like they wouldn't say. I've had a ton of friends that have met on the internet and stayed together, but it took them years to kind of disclose that. Now they have no problem with it. Do you find that people are hesitant to say I met someone in a matchmaker? Do you find that?
I would say that there's not one distinct answer, obviously, but like you were just saying, many people would say they won't admit they met on a dating app, but now people are like, yep, we met on a dating app. I would say that I also tell people, because I'm constantly out being people's wing person at events. Like another thing I do, Denver Pride Professionals, highly recommend it. Quarterly LGBTQ plus ally networking, free.
Yeah.
I always have 300 to 500 people. And I tell my clients, when you go, you can say, it's up to you. Tony's my matchmaker. Or I just say, how do you know Tony? Oh, Tony knows everybody. So it's up to each person to decide if they want to say what they're doing. But I have heard many people say they're very proud to say that they've got a matchmaker.
Well, Tony, tell everybody where they can find you. Again, if you're not a member of the LGBT community, but you are interested in matchmaking, Tony's happy to hook you up with someone who kind of works with whatever area you're in. Where can people find you, Tony?
Yes. So number one, denverscupid.com. And then also same with my social media handle, Denver's Cupid. And also I would say, there's so many matchmakers out there. There is a wonderful organization called the Matchmakers Alliance. It is one of many organizations that I'm a part of that keeps us together as a professional field.
Tony, we have 30 seconds left. Give us a quick client success story, something fun.
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh, 30 seconds in a success story. I always love to say my own success story, but I have married a couple, but that's more private. I was like, what can I actually share? That's a success
Sorry, I should have
story?
given you a heads up.
I will say my favorite thing is people say, I set up people on blind dates. My parents happen to meet on a blind date, and they'll say, how do we know who the other person is? This is corny, but it works. You have to arrive with a single flower and look for the only other person with a single flower. Corny, but it works. But you should also do that for your dates, is bring something unexpected.
Great advice. Well, R. Tony Smith, we really appreciate you coming on. Of course, if you have questions, you can always text us on our text line at 720-451 or 251-4450. You can email us at thewrongwayforward@gmail.com podcast. And Tony, if we get questions, we'll be bringing you back on. We appreciate your insight, your expertise, and we're rooting for everybody out there to find love.
Thank you, Katy. Thank you, Justin. Happy Pride Month, and love is love.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this, everybody.
Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin.
So welcome back. This week's episode, we were talking to R. Tony Smith with denverscupid.com, talking about something that, Katy, I don't know. I do feel like I don't think stigma is the right word, but it's not approachable, maybe. I'm guessing it's very expensive. Tony did not want to talk about the investment. But anyway, I thought it was a really interesting take for people who are trying to find love.
I think it's great. And I don't necessarily think there's a stigma. I think it's the investment, right? And I think it's the investment without knowing, if you go and you spend $3,000 on a Fendi bag, you get to keep that Fendi bag and you carry it everywhere you go. If you go on, I don't know, Match.com and it's $19.99 a month, $20 is mentally not something, that's the same price as a Big Mac meal, right? So I think it's more the investment. But I think my biggest takeaway for this is that it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? And I think what is great is Tony is an expert. He knows the market. He is a connector and relationship builder. And I heard that he's a coach, like you're getting feedback. So it really is, you get what you pay for. And I think it's people taking a hard look, like, do you want to find love? And what I think is really interesting is he launched this during COVID when people were lonely and needed relationships and couldn't find each other. And so if you are at a stage in your life, I'm talking to myself a little bit here, and you're not finding those people through the traditional measures, maybe it's time to have someone. But I think the real question is, are you willing to commit? And what is the fear behind that? And we can say the word stigma and we could say the word cost, but is it that a matchmaker is going to really tell you like it is and is really going to intimately know you and is going to get feedback on your dates? And that's a real positive, but there's also some fear in that, right? Maybe it confirms all those things you thought about yourself and why you're single. I think that's the hurdle we need to get over. And I think this is being curious and taking risks.
And I think what she was saying just a minute ago, and I know her camera froze up, was that there's some fear behind that. The other thing I would add to what Katy was saying is the fact that you look at people who pay for their own education, the money you put in, if it's your own money, it tends to be you invest more in it. And so you're more committed to it. And so even though it is an expense, I think it's an expense that if you're paying it out of pocket, you're going to put the time in needed to make it work. And I think like anything, it's not for everyone, right? I mean, it reminds me, and I think what Katy said also was really made a lot of sense when we talked about that your preference is to always have a book, right? You're making a $3,000 deposit. You don't know what you're getting on the other side. Whereas when I went to bars to meet people, I could look over the crowd and pick out people who were dressed in a way that I wanted them to be dressed and look the way that I wanted them to be looked. And so that was easier than making a investment and then not knowing what's coming out of the other side. But I think that's right. All right. Well, that was this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. We were joined by R. Tony Smith with denverscupid.com. Of course, we always welcome your feedback, your texts at 720-251-4450. You can always email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, we love to hear from you and would love to hear your own stories on your match. How did you meet your significant other? Would you use a matchmaker? If so, why? If not, why not? And as always, we thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Wrong Way Forward.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.